everybody, to Case Studies in Website Analytics. Many of you know me. I am Laura Quinn. I am the Executive Director of Idealware. I've been doing a number of these seminars with LSNTAP over the course of a couple of years. I'm with Idealware, which is we are a nonprofit ourselves, which specializes in research and articles and training about how to use technology, choosing and using effectively. And I am lucky enough to be here today with four intrepid users of website analytics who are going to talk to us about how they are using analytics for themselves and show some screenshots of what they're actually doing. So we're going to start with Teri Ross. We're going to move on to Laura Norvig. We're going to then Brian Rowe himself is going to talk a little about LSNTAP is using analytics. And then we'll end up with Alex Bernard. Sorry, pretty. And I'm going to definitely allow them to introduce themselves, but I'm thinking let's just, for the sake of continuity, for you remembering who everybody is, let us dive in and start with Teri and let her introduce herself. So, Teri, can you take it away? Can you say a little about yourself and Legal Aid Online?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today. My name is Teri Ross. I'm the Program Director at Illinois Legal Aid Online. We are a non-for-profit organization in Illinois. We're the Legal Services Technology Center for Illinois. We've been in existence for about 14 years. We have 4 websites and 2 mobile apps. We're going to be looking at Google Analytics for the 2 public websites in a moment, and we have been set up on Google Analytics since about 2008, but we substantially revamped our account structure about a year and a half ago so that it's more streamlined, because we have a lot of sub-sites for legal self-help centers, which is the equivalent of xyzcounty.illinoislegalaid.org. So our 2 primary public sites are illinoislegalaid.org and ayudalegal.org, which is our mirrored website. And with that, Laura, why don't you advance to the next screen, and I'll dive in. So what you're seeing here on the screen is our dashboard. I created dashboards for all 4 of the websites, and this is a feature that you can do in Google Analytics. The dashboard consists of a series of widgets, right? So what you see is the U.S. visit map is a widget. The little visits total with the spark line beside it is a widget. The Illinois visits by medium pie chart is a widget. Those are all different widgets, and you can swap them in and out of your dashboard as you choose. You can also add segments to any of those widgets. So, for example, you see those 2 pie charts, which Laura has put side by side. So one is, I don't know, my screen is not terribly clear, so I don't know if you all can read that very well, but one is Illinois visits by medium, which is the one on the left, and the one on the right, the pop-out sort of, is visits minus Illinois by medium. So the medium is, how are people getting to your website? Are they coming in through organic search, which is, in other words, Google? Are they typing your URL in directly into their browser? Do they have it bookmarked as one of their favorites? Or are they coming to you from a referring site? So what you see here is that the majority of our traffic comes from organic search. So people are getting to us primarily through Google. We are very well optimized for search. This is not a surprise. But the Google looks very favorably on referral visits when it gives its search rankings. So it's always a goal of ours to increase that little orange slice to something that's bigger, right? So we always want to try to get more folks linking to us, and that boosts our rating in Google's eyes. And it also boosts awareness about our organization. Laura, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so here's an example of one of the widgets. So this is a heat map. This is one of the forms of visualizations that Google Analytics has. I think it's pretty cool. It looks really nice, and you can see you can't see the state of Illinois because there's some blue dots over it, and one giant blue dot, which is Chicago, and so all these little dots are essentially municipalities. And if you hover over them while you're in Google Analytics, it will actually tell you the name of the municipality and how many sessions or visits they're logged in for that period of time. I should also say, from the preceding screen, the dashboard that you're looking at was actually run from April to May, I believe. So it's a month of time over the course of IllinoisLegalAid.org's analytics. So this is a heat map. You can also, the other thing you can do with this is if I wanted to zero in on Illinois itself, I could click on Illinois and then it would just give me a map of the state and break out the cities and municipalities according to that as well. So this is a really nice visualization tool. Laura, next slide. Okay, so this is one of my favorite things to look at. So this is a widget I segmented. So one of the things I've done recently is we have staff whose job it is to do outreach. And so one of the things that we look at is where are people coming to us from. And Google Analytics will give you the approximate municipality maps to the IP address. And so one of the things that I have done is I look at this list of cities, and this is sorted by most visits, most sessions. Google Analytics used to call it visits, and just about a month ago it changed it, and now it's calling it sessions. Google has a tendency to change things without sort of letting you know, which is one thing you'll want to keep in mind about using this tool. So what I did was I took this list and I compared it against census data from the most recent census data available from 2013, looking at what the most populous cities are in Illinois. And I did some analysis, and what I found is that so these 10 cities that you see here are not the most populous cities. Some of them are, obviously Chicago. But there are several cities that are not on this list that should be, and so that has informed our outreach efforts. So, for example, 2 communities, both of which who have substantial poverty rates, are not on this list, and one is Cicero, Illinois, and one is Berwyn, Illinois. And so we are concentrating our outreach efforts, knowing that we're not getting enough traction in those communities, and we need to raise awareness about our resources there. Next slide, Laura. Here is another thing you can do. So here's our actual content on the website, and again, I like to compare. Analytics are you can't look at analytics in a vacuum. You have to compare it against something else, and that's kind of a tricky thing. So it's useful to compare time period against time period or segment against segment. And so this is what you see here. I'm comparing a segment of what's our most popular content outside of Illinois, and how does it compare against our most popular content in Illinois. And obviously the second one is the one that we care more about, because those are the people whose mission it is for us to serve. The fact that that Google puts our dismissed with or without prejudice content in as number 1 or 2 if you do a Google search, that content is always on the top of the list, and that's why, and nobody else has content on it, right? And so that's why that's so high outside of Illinois. So nationally, when somebody just says, when in Law and Order, somebody says this case is dismissed with prejudice, and somebody says, what does that mean? And they go and they Google it, and they end up on our content that way. And I do want to point out one of my favorites on the most popular content in Illinois is can I leave my children alone at home after school? That one is always one of the favorites, which I think is kind of funny. So go ahead, Laura.
Fantastic. So thanks so much for. Oh, sorry. You've got one.
I got one more. Sorry. Actually, I have two more, I think.
Absolutely. Sorry, I was keying up questions for you, so I have so many questions. I'll let you finish.
So what you see here is these are actually from a different dashboard. These are from the Ayuda Legal IL dashboard. So, and the really interesting thing for us on this, so this is our Spanish language website, is how much traction we're getting around the world, basically. And you don't see the heat map here, but there's a world map that you can look at Google Analytics, and you can see how many visits we're getting from Central and South America to this content, and from Spain, for that matter. So again, Illinois visits makes up a small percentage on the Spanish website versus what you saw on the English website, where it was 65 or 70% of our total visits. The other thing I want to point out about the Spanish website, which is really telling, is that you can do Google Analytics will look at what device people are using to access your content and your websites. And so these numbers, so it sorts the device by highest number of sessions, right? And what's at the top? Mobile. This is not yet true for English content, but it is. Look at the difference between mobile and desktop in Illinois. And so one of the things that we know from this is that we have got to make the Spanish website mobile usable, right? So that's the lesson that we've learned there. The other thing that's interesting on this is sort of if you compare the average session duration from the world to Illinois, you see that we're getting a lot better traction in Illinois than we are in the rest of the world, which is what we want to see, right? So that's a good comparison there. All right, last slide, Laura. So finally, one of the other things that you can do in Google Analytics is you can set up goals. We're still kind of getting our feet wet with these, so I set up two very simple goals. And what you see here is the goal conversion rate. So one is meaningful visits, and that just means that somebody has been on the web page for more than 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And then one is an engaged visit, and that just means that they've looked at more than 2 pages in their session. I set these up just to see what it's giving us. We obviously want these numbers to increase. There are other goals that you can set up. The other simple one to do, and this makes a lot of sense for those of you who are getting donations online, is you can do a destination goal so that you can track how many people are landing on that thank you for donating page. So that's another simple goal that you can set up. And then there are some more complicated goals, and we're starting to dabble in those, but we haven't set any of those up just yet. The other thing that I want to mention before I pass the baton is that it would be really great because Google Analytics are difficult to look at just in and of themselves. It'd be really nice if we as a community could come together and come up with some baseline data, right? To know that, well, is this bounce rate really crazy, or is this just sort of standard? Same thing with some of these metrics: time on page, time on site, visit duration. It would be nice. It would be nice to know what other people are experiencing and how and if our own experience mirrors that of other legal services and their websites. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
Great. Thanks so much, Teri. I'm going to ask Teri a question, and I see one from Jillian as well. This would be a great time if you have questions to enter them in the chat so we can kind of make sure that this is a dialogue and not just a presentation. Teri, I'm curious in listening to your talk to to hear a little more about kind of how you kind of make this fit into your day-to-day process. How often do you look at this stuff? How often do you decide to change things? How is this a daily, a weekly, a monthly type thing?
I would say it informs our content development almost daily, I would say. I mean, that's how we prioritize what gets updated and what to focus on. It also, as far as outreach, I would say, weekly or monthly. We're looking at it regularly. There are things that come up throughout my day where I think, I wonder what Google Analytics says about that, and so I'll go in and see what I can find. So I would say that I use it daily for program evaluation.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're using it, you're kind of not just saying, I wonder what there is to see in the dashboard, but you are kind of going there with particular questions in mind. Yeah?
Right. Yes. Yeah. And that is important. I think that's useful. If you just start dabbling around in it without having sort of an idea of what you want to see, it can be really daunting.
Absolutely. Great. Jillian asks a question that I know is close to your heart, Teri. We find the Google Analytics interface is constantly changing. Any recommendations for keeping up with it?
So our director of technology development is on the Google developer listserv, I think. Something like that. Unfortunately she's not here today, but and so she has a regular sort of pipeline. She gets informed. One of the things that Google recently changed is sort of how their bots index somebody's site, and she found out about it, and she was like, oh well, this is a concern, and we might have to look at this going forward because it might affect some of our SEO.
Great. Carolyn had a great comment in the chat. Teri's idea about sharing our Google Analytics information is fantastic. I'm hoping everyone on the call participates in the interviews with the Brandeis student reporting on statewide website projects. Is this a project, Teri, that you know anything about, or Brian, do you know anything about, or should we ask Carolyn to talk a little more about it?
Yeah, no, we I actually spoke with her. Her name's Ursula, and it was put out to the LS Tech list, and I think Carolyn actually reposted it, and encouraged people to speak with her. But she's a graduate student, and she's doing research on what the impact is of statewide websites. So I encourage, for those of you who haven't spoken to her yet or have been reluctant to do so, I would encourage you to reach out to her. And if you need contact information, we can get it to you.
Great. Fantastic. Amy mentions that changes to how Google indexes sites includes not putting so much emphasis on referrals, so the orange slice of your pie chart. Does this resonate for you, Teri, or Alex?
Oh, I didn't know that. So thank you, Amy. Thanks for letting me know.
Do you want to hit Strategist and say a little more? Amy, you not there? Sorry. Anyway, don't mean to put people on the spot. Fantastic. And Alex, did you want to just talk through what you just posted to the chat?
Sure. I was just pointing out that Google has blogs dedicated to many of their main products, and I'm pretty sure that the one for Google Analytics is at analytics.blogspot.com, or you can just search for Google Analytics blog, and they would post there changes that they're making to the tool, specifically to analytics, to the interface, et cetera, et cetera. There are also a number of other good resources out there. I'm a huge fan of a guy named Avinash Kaushik, Kaushik, and he writes a lot about web analytics and provides really, really helpful guidelines and tutorials and all that type of stuff. So I'm a big fan of his.
Perfect. Any last questions for Teri before we hear what Laura is doing in this world? into the chat. Hit *6 to unmute yourself. All right. Laura, I will hand it over to you. We're lucky to have Laura Norvig, who is a digital media strategist at ETR. Laura, you wanted to talk just a little bit about yourself and about ETR before you dive in?
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you for having me, Laura. I'm a huge Idealware fan, so I just love the resources you provide, so thanks for that. I do work for ETR. It stands for Education, Training, and Research. It has nothing to do with legal services. We work primarily in the area of sexual and reproductive health, as well as other aspects of family and community health. We publish several evidence-based interventions to reduce teen pregnancy and the spread of HIV. We also train people to implement these trainings, and we do a lot of research funded by the CDC and the NSF. We also do program evaluations. So we have a wide range of things we do, and one final aspect of our work involves selling health education pamphlets. We are a nonprofit, but we do sell health education products. And in this area, our marketing department functions a lot more like a typical for-profit kind of B2B or business-to-business relationship. So one of my grants that I had worked on for about 12 years ended in January, so I now work for the agency as a whole, managing the email marketing system and its integration with our CRM, which is Salesforce, as well as our Google AdWords grant. And in my spare time, I sit on our content strategy team and head up our social media efforts. So a lot going on for me. Today, I'm just going to show a few quick slides that give a glimpse into the power of Hubspot, our email marketing tool, and kind of how the simple data visualization it provides works for us. So this is one of the ready-made charts that Hubspot provides, and it just breaks down the sources of traffic to our website. So I can quickly see with the color coding how much traffic is coming from direct traffic, direct search, paid search, email marketing, and referrals. I think it also has a social media component, but that didn't show up in this one.
Laura, can you tell us a little bit about when you might use Hubspot compared when you might use Google Analytics?
Well, the primary purpose of Hubspot is really the email marketing tool and the customer, the way it interacts with the CRM. So it'll track all the people whose emails we have. It then tries to match them up with IPs. But what I really noticed about it is that some of these simple graphs it provides are easier for me to kind of grasp the data I'm looking at than going into analytics. Sometimes you go into Google Analytics and you just start wandering around and you say, wow, that's really interesting, but you're not having a good direction on what am I looking for, where's the actionable data. So this particular chart, it's great for just grabbing a screenshot that I could share with my marketing team or even maybe with the board or executive leadership. And then we use it to look back at what we've done to see, what can we do more of that works and what sources are not working as well. So in this case, like in April, we had a really good email marketing campaign. And we knew that because we've been tracking the response on the individual email. It was about e-cigarettes, which is just a really hot new topic. But this kind of confirmed, the ratio of that source of traffic. And by setting up the snippets of code, that's how we integrate with both Google Analytics and AdWords. So HubSpot helps gather the information on how those are performing. So this next one is just a daily email that they send us, and this is the case where, so everyone that we have an email for that we've interacted with before, it tries to track their IP address. Now sometimes in this daily email I'll see a lot of just like AT&T. It'll be just an ISP provider, but then I click through and I can see more on the different IPs. But in this case, this particular daily one really showed some of our stakeholders or clients or customers, and then it gives how many different visitors from that one IP are coming to our site, and then in the right-hand column, it's showing, if it says google.com, they came from an organic search. The one that has more like a search phrase, that's coming from paid search. And then the last one on the bottom is showing the referral website. And then the next, go ahead.
So I was going to ask what the leads refers to. Is that how many people have actually done something on your site?
Leads, I believe, there's what they call a life cycle in HubSpot where they're trying to, they'll call the person a subscriber if it's just someone that you're sending email to. They convert to a lead when they get to a point of interaction with us where we think it's interesting enough for our sales team. So that's why you're not really seeing very many leads. There's a further stage called contact, is when they're an actual customer that we've already dealt with. And then the next one is again the same kind of thing, but you can see some other types of refers. In the right-hand column, you see the year-end push email. So that was an email marketing source. And then from within this daily digest or from the HubSpot dashboard, then I can drill down to even more detail. So I think the next slide shows what you get when you're on the website and you're looking at a particular IP. To the extent possible, it will show you, you can see the tabs across the top say summary, and this is just a summary one. But if I clicked over to content, I'll see the actual web pages that all the different visitors from this IP went to. And then the people tab, if that person is in my email list, it'll identify who they are. Otherwise, there might be a lot of anonymous visitors from that particular IP. And then this also syncs up with the CRM, with Salesforce, so the salespeople can see it without having to go into the HubSpot tool. So for me, I just think sometimes it's hard with all the different data you're gathering. I'll go into AdWords all the time and see, well, which keywords are working, or I'll go into Google Analytics, but it can be hard to build something to visualize that. And HubSpot is constantly coming up with new methods of data visualization that are helpful to us.
Fantastic. So, Laura, do you find that this is useful as you think of, so you mentioned that you're on your content development team. In what ways do you use this information to help you inform what is useful content to either refresh or to create? How does this fit into that process?
I think sometimes, it could be as simple as we might use a lot of jargon for certain types of, on our blog we write some pretty in-depth articles, and they may have the jargon of a program evaluator, or I'm sorry, not our blog. It's a monthly e-newsletter that's pretty in-depth. But it may have a lot of jargon based on whether it's written by a researcher or a program evaluator, and by looking at the keywords and the top keywords that, as well as which pages people resonate with, we can, maybe tweak our language a little bit, extra keywords onto things. So I think, again, it's kind of an easier look at some of the top keywords is what I would say, and then even to the level of what keywords are resonating with which audiences. So that helps.
Great. Fantastic. This would be a great time if you have questions for Laura, Laura Norvig, or for me, to enter them into the chat. And I'm just going to continue to ask Laura a couple more because I find this pretty fascinating. Laura, let me ask you the same question I asked Liz. I'm curious how this fits into your process from kind of a time frame type perspective. Do you think of this as something that you check in on now and again? You look at every Friday morning at 10 o'clock, or how do you kind of use it in your process?
Well, there's two different ways. I mean, one, and I'm honestly trying to get a little better about this, but one is just an obvious monthly check, and sometimes a weekly one for the marketing team is just checking on the email marketing statistics. And then monthly trying to gather more dashboard data. But then daily, what I'm looking at is it's such a clear insight into who's interacting with us the most. There are all kinds of things that surface that. And then I'll go and look at, well, how much data do we have on this person? Maybe we only have their email and their company name, but it turns out they're really poking around on our website. Then I can actually go out and Google them and add more information to their record in Salesforce. Which is probably not, I try to limit how much I'll do that, or just do like the top 3 people, because that could be a time suck. But that's kind of one of the daily things I do.
Yeah. That's interesting. And so to kind of translate that into the legal aid sector, you probably wouldn't be, checking to see who is looking up your information about, for instance, whether or not they can leave their children at home after work. But you might be able to see some of the partners that are really relying on your information, and to see, oh, interesting, the Illinois Public Health Department seems to be accessing our information a lot. Maybe there's potential partnerships over there, or things like that. So to kind of think of that in a potentially a slightly different way than ECR is thinking about it.
Yeah, and actually that's the same for us too, because we have, as I said, these other areas of research and partnerships we're trying to develop as our industry is changing. So it helps that way too, to see if our partners are aware of maybe the great content in our newsletters and that kind of thing.
Fantastic. Great. So any other questions for Laura before we move on to Brian talking about some of what LSNTAP is doing with YouTube analytics? All right. Let us talk about YouTube. Brian, you want to just introduce yourself a little bit and kind of in what capacities you're working on YouTube?
Definitely. So my name's Brian Rowe. I run LSNTAP, Legal Services National Technology Project here at Northwest Justice Project. I've also got a little bit of involvement with Northwest Justice Project's own YouTube channel. We've got about 30 or so videos up there that are all client public focused. LSNTAP has moved all of their training webinars from our own proprietary player and hosting them on Amazon S3. We moved them all over to YouTube and have seen about a 60 or 70% increase on the least popular videos, and up to a 200 to 300% increase in number of views moving them over to YouTube. I run a personal YouTube channel, so I spend a lot of time in the analytics on YouTube. Since I did these slides, the interface to YouTube has been updated, so I completely understand. They added a new creators dashboard interface. All of the graphs and things are there. Some of them take an extra click to get to, but you really need somebody in your program who likes looking at these, who's going to spend a lot of time with it to keep up, because they update it and you don't have an option. You have to move to whatever the new updated interface is. So, let's move on to the first one.
There we go.
So this is shows about 3 things. This is a collection, debt collection defense video that Northwest Justice Project put up. Your first minute, we've got a pretty good amount of drop-off in it, and that's people figuring out whether or not this is the right video. So often we want to see is after you get to that 30-second to minute mark is, do we continue to retain people? The other thing that we did here is that we put in a menu that you can click on any of these items and it takes you to different areas. So our overall number of people viewing the entire video is longer, but we definitely see that people come back to this menu, reselect this menu, or if they're sharing it externally, they're sharing it to start at this menu. So we have a percentage of viewers who just jump into this menu and skip the introduction. This is one of 2 different videos where we have a menu like this, and it's been very successful for allowing people to navigate longer videos. Our shorter videos and more popular videos tend to be around that 3 to 7 minute mark. This has a lot more content in it, but the menu allows it to basically be chunked up into those small pieces so that individuals can see it. This is one of our more popular videos. Most videos don't have this type of amazing retention at the beginning, but this lets you see all the way through exactly where people are looking at different items. You see the bumps in the curve here that will show when people often are pausing, rewinding, rewatching something. This occasionally happens when we throw URLs on the screen or resources that are external. If there's something that they're supposed to write down, we can see that they go back. There's a good question here is, have we experimented with dividing those up into separate videos? And we've done both. We've had the separate video, which I think is actually better for getting us analytics on a particular video or topic. And the way that the YouTube annotation links work, you can link to a different video or you can link to a different time spot in this video. I think if we were going to redo this, we would probably consider doing it as a series of videos, so it's a little bit easier to break out the analytics than one longer video. We've also definitely noticed with the webinars that we do through LSNTAP that even if we've got great content, if we put it up as an entire 90 minutes, we're going to lose people towards the end. If there's a way for us to divide that content up, the number of views, hits on it definitely goes up. So I would suggest dividing longer videos up into shorter, more compact videos, definitely. One other thing to really notice here is that YouTube has a absolute retention, which counts the number of people who show up to, who are continuing to watch. They, in one of the other graphs, will tell you how many people watched all the way through. The all the way through number isn't very good for legal services videos because we love to put lawyer talk, disclaimers, copyright notices, and stuff that nobody will ever watch or listen to at the very end of videos. So you've really got to look at your videos and see where are they once you get to the credits, because that shows you how many people watched it through, as opposed to how many people watched all the way through the credits. If they're watching all the way through the credits, you're doing something amazing with credits that I haven't figured out yet. On to the next one. Something else that's really interesting about Google Analytics within YouTube is it's a lot more like universal analytics. We're able to get demographic information because users in YouTube often have a Google Plus account or a YouTube account in which they filled out some demographic information. So we're able to get location. We're able to see that about 80 to 95% of our hits, depending on the video, are coming from Washington State, which you can do with traditional analytics. But we also get this type of demographic information about the age and sex of users that are self-identified here, which is very interesting. And I think it really shows what's going to be possible when we update to universal analytics. Another thing that we're really able to do is see the type of devices that people are using to watch our videos and the trends that are happening there. So we see that between mobile phones, and tablets, we're getting at least 16 and as much as 25% of our views from those mobile devices at this point. It's definitely a benefit for us to be using YouTube as it automatically resizes as kind of a responsive design to any of those devices. But if you're using this type of video content in any way, you definitely want to track the type of devices that they're using and then also test it to make sure that it's set up for those particular devices. Especially if you've got heavy embedded text, making sure that the text is larger and easy to read on a small cell phone or tablet device. Well, we've got another question here. Does YouTube Analytics count videos watched that are embedded in your website or just on YouTube? It counts both. It will tell you anytime that somebody watches it from an embedded source and keep track of those. So we can see which of our hits are coming from YouTube directly and which of those are coming from embedded blog posts or our tech library. So wonderful analytics there. We can also see when other people embed them somewhere else and where those embeds are.
Great. So I think Alex's question, let me ask you a question to break up these a little bit. So are there specific meetings or decisions that you use any of these analytics for? So is there any, do you do anything to try to get other people in the organization kind of using these metrics?
Definitely. So first, we use these analytics as part of our outreach promotion when we're talking to funders, showing them that we're having an impact in their particular area in the state. We can pull up a state map and show where the hits are from and that we are affecting clients in their particular area. We also use this as a measure for the successfulness both of our website and of our YouTube channel. We have analytics that are similar on our statewide website that is definitely useful to us. We also use this iteratively when creating new content. We created a video on some tenant rights stuff that was wonderfully done from content perspective, but 45 minutes. And nobody was watching past the first 10 minutes. So that really informed how we were dealing with that particular group and doing future videos. That although there's a lot of information, we needed to really cut it down and scale it down. So whenever we put a video up, we try to also compare what is it when we have a big drop off of individuals? Is it that we put up 3 or 4 or 5 slides of just text, or did we put up a form, or did we send them to another site? Is the drop off in the video because of a poor design, or is it that we're actually telling people to go somewhere else? And then we can look at that with regards to our next video. We've got a attorney who also does video content work 2 days a week, and he is in charge of looking at these and then planning future projects based on these. So it's a very iterative process.
Great.
There's another question here on what is the dark blue for spike in devices. I believe that was mobile phones, but I don't have that particular map in front of me. I may be able to figure it out though, as I do have the analytics open in another window. I'll look into that and let you know.
Yeah, it is a quite dramatic spike. And that's the kind of thing, while Brian is looking, it's interesting because it's exactly the type of thing that could either be a really interesting and significant piece of information, or it could also, you'll notice it's a spike from around 25 to around 150. So it might be something that is just kind of a quirk of something that things are, like someone pocket dialed it a bunch of times, or there was a fluke in the counting. So there's some of these things, I know from having experience with my own site, some of these things are very significant and useful, but some of these things you can go nuts in trying to track down what the heck was that and why did we have that spike. And sometimes there's probably just not a good reason, or at least not a reason that you can figure out.
Mm-hmm. I mean, definitely with the Washington Lawyers for the Arts, site, which is a much smaller. We get 30 to 50 hits a day on our blog posts. When a third party, such as Reddit or the intellectual property lawyers listserv or other things like that, will pick something up, we'll see a spike, and we'll usually be able to find a corresponding URL to let us know where that spike came from. Yeah, I'm looking at the graph right now, and it is a spike in mobile phones specifically. Probably take me another minute to figure out what video they were related to. But we're looking at probably 1,000, like 5 or 6 times our normal traffic in mobile phones on that day.
Yeah, interesting. Great. How often, I'll ask, I'm apparently obsessed with the process, but I think if people are really interested in kind of thinking through how this might fit in their own day, how often do you go and look at these stats, Brian? Is this a daily thing, a weekly, monthly?
At minimum, it's once a week that I will go through the LSNTAP, the Northwest Justice Project, and my personal stuff. But I'm the type of person who's addicted to these. On the personal side stuff, I look at them every day. It's fun, it's interesting, and if there is somebody that is giving you credit that he is sharing your stuff, it's an opportunity to go over there, to tell them thank you, to provide them additional links. So let's say that somebody has shared your campaign about texting while driving. Hopefully those videos aren't all being watched on a mobile phone in a moving device, but it gives you an opportunity to provide more information from them if you can find where that video is embedded, who is sharing that. So it allows you to engage in a community conversation at that point.
Great. Fantastic. Any other questions for Brian before Alex is going to wrap up with our last case study, and then we'll turn into kind of a panel type Q&A where I have a couple of questions for all 4 of our folks, and you're certainly welcome to submit questions for the panel as well. Any other questions for Brian into the chat, or hit *6 before we move onward? All right. Alex, take it away.
All right. Super exciting. So my name is Alex Bernardin, and I'm Digital Content Manager for the San Francisco AIDS Foundation. We are based in San Francisco, and our primary mission is reducing and eliminating HIV transmission here and everywhere eventually, but we're primarily focused on San Francisco. We've got, we have a number of websites. Our primary one is ssaf.org. That's sort of our main brand website. Then we have a number of sites that are associated with individual programs, and we also produce the AIDS Life Cycle, which is a cycling fundraiser where folks ride from San Francisco to Los Angeles, and that has its own web presence, which is pretty significant as well. So, trying to think if there's anything else pertinent as far as who I am and what I do. Probably not. The scenario that I wanted to talk to you all about today in terms of using analytics to make my job a little bit easier is a specific scenario that happened in the beginning of last year. We had merged with another agency here in San Francisco, which had a very, very similar mission. It was called Stop AIDS Project, and they had their website up, and their website had a lot of overlap with ours in terms of content. Both organizations have, as part of their core mission, the intention of educating the public, so we want to share information. And in that scenario, it actually matters how many people come to your site, right? So as we were considering shutting down their website to merge it into ours, we figured out, hold on, my computer's doing something weird. So as we were considering merging their site into ours, we said, okay, well, should we just shut it down, turn off stopaids.org and call it a day? Or maybe we just redirect that domain over to sfaf.org. As we were discussing that and considering it, and some folks were claiming, well, but we have really great content on there, people love it, it's really important that we keep it around. We took a deeper look and realized that they had been running Google Analytics for some time, well over a year. And what I realized was that we could use data to help us make this decision. And so this is the process that I undertook to figure out the best approach to migrating useful content off of their site onto ours and setting up appropriate redirects so that people who had been looking for stopaids.org would then be redirected to a very specific appropriate place on sfaf.org. Secondarily, there was I had a notion that this might let us use or acquire some of the search engine credibility or the search engine juice that was associated with the StopAIDS domain, because it had been running for quite a while and had built up a fair amount of credibility. And so I had a theory that this might have a positive net effect on our domain as well, but I wasn't entirely sure. So my first step, as you can see in the screenshot that we're looking at now, my first step was to go into Google Analytics, and under what is now the behavior group of reports, I just pulled up the All Pages report. And I expanded the time window to be a full year, which you could do for a 6-month window as well. And this is a similar process that I would go through if I were going to do an audit of a site that I was taking over to see what was going on with the website. I would start with this broad, just kind of overview, what's been going on the site for a while. And to me, this is one of the core reasons to use analytics, is that it gives you this insight. If you don't have analytics, people will say, oh yeah, lots of folks use our website, and you have no way of validating that. You have no data to back it up. You don't know which pages people like and which ones people don't like and how long they spend on there and what they do or where they come from. You know nothing. So to me, having analytics is just really a necessary first step in having any kind of insight into what's going on the website. In this case, it allowed me to make my job a little bit easier because part of doing a site migration process is, well, I got to find all the URLs on the site so that I can then set up redirects for them. And it's handy to pull up this All Pages report because now I can export that into Excel, and I've got a list of all of the URLs that have been visited in the last year on the website, which is mighty handy. The other thing that I observed as I pulled up this report is that if you can see that small, the first 2 rows really have the lion's share of traffic here. That first page on the list, the top most visited page over a year, got twice as many visits as the number 2. And number 2 got more than twice as the number 3 page. And by the way, the number 3 page is the home page. So this got my attention. There's 2 pages on their site that were hugely popular, that were getting a huge amount of traffic. And it made me think, hey, maybe there is some content here that's actually worthwhile, that's worth keeping and migrating over to SFAF. And I think, in fact, that their traffic for this type of content, this is specifically about whether or not, how long you should wait before you get an HIV test after you might have been exposed, and whether or not getting oral sex or giving oral sex is highly risky for HIV transmission. These are clearly 2 super hot button issues, right? Clearly, this is stuff people want to know. And so it caused me to take a closer look at what we had going on sfaf.org on our primary website and compare the traffic to the pages that we had that had that comparable content. What I observed was that our traffic was actually lower on the SFAF side for those pages. And part of the reason for that, in my opinion, based on looking at these analytics numbers, based on looking at the existing site, how it was structured, and where the traffic was going, I realized that the way that the StopAIDS site was organized allowed people to search for the thing that was on their mind. How soon should I get a test after I get exposed? And they would find one specific page that was a really good answer to that specific question. And that was very different than the way we had our content organized. Our page that had that information on it was really long, and it had answers to several different questions because we sort of conceived of it as, oh, it's a HIV basics question page. And so we lumped together all these things on a really long page. So this gave us some really valuable insight. Just looking at this report and digging into these numbers a little bit gave us a huge insight into not only what we ought to do for moving this website and shutting it down, but also an opportunity that we've missed out on for how we could restructure our website. So step 2, if you go to the next slide, I took the data from that analytics report, brought it into Excel, added a couple of columns. There's things here like, oh, is the tone of the content appropriate? Is it still accurate content? Like, is it okay to keep it? Was it copied from another source, and that means we have to turn it down or, shut it down? All of those things go into an Excel sheet when I'm doing this kind of a process. But what Excel allows me to do a little bit more easily than analytics is to do kind of multiple levels of sorting and grouping and color coding things according to, how many hits you got in a certain time frame. And so I kind of like to do some of this stuff in Excel. And it also lets me see things like bounce rate, and then I can bounce back and forth between my Excel listing and my analytics screens to dive more deeply into individual pages and say, okay, so, this whole section over here about sexual health when you're engaging in certain types of practices, if it's BDSM or leather or whatever, like this section over here doesn't get a lot of traffic. Maybe you can't navigate to it well, like what's going on, or maybe like we don't get good referrals into that section. And so I would go section by section in Excel, make notes, and then bounce back and forth into analytics and dive more deeply into the details around each of these individual pages or individual sections. So again, just getting a lot of insight into what had been happening on the site really made a huge difference in informing my plan for what we were going to do with the content on the site, and which of them we should move, which of them we should shut down and retire or just get rid of. And so out of that, we did set up a lot of redirects off of the Stop AIDS site. We actually restructured the content section on sfaf.org. So we changed out that one really long page, and we made it look more like the Stop AIDS site. We chopped it up into smaller bits. We changed the language a little bit, which is something that you can sometimes do based on keyword research out of like a Google AdWords. You can see what type of terminology people are using to search for content that you have, and then tailor the content in your page to match it more directly. Maybe it's a tone issue, maybe it's a terminology issue. You don't know until you do the research, but the opportunity is there and the data is there to kind of reveal how people talk about the topic that you're trying to talk to them about. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see what happened as a result. We set up a whole lot of redirects. We shut down the Stop AIDS website. So all the search engines, as well as all the human beings who might have had it bookmarked, who went to those pages, now got redirected to specific pages on our main website. And then for maybe 80% of the Stop AIDS site, we redirected to a single landing page that just said, well, I'm sorry, the Stop AIDS site's been shut down. We merged with SFAF, and if you're looking for information on XYZ, you should look in these sections on the SFAF website. So sort of giving people an opportunity to navigate around in our site if they didn't find what they were looking for. So what happened as a result of that? What we're looking at now, this screenshot is from SFAF's website, our primary website, and it's the time period, I think it's the entire 2013. And I changed the timeline so that it's by week instead of by day, so it's a little less jagged. That's kind of smoothed it out a little bit so we can see the trend more clearly. And I also make heavy use of what are called annotations in analytics. And what you'll see, those are the little word bubbles that show up on the timeline right above, like where it says July. There's a whole bunch of them. And you can expand it. It's like a little tray that pops down beneath the timeline. And you just make a note. It's a free text field. You just make a note on the day. And so I made a note on May 23rd that was the day we started redirecting traffic from the old site to the new site. What that let me do several months later is to go back and say, well, what was the side effect of that redirection? Pretty clearly, we got an increase in traffic. Now, this is traffic for the site as a whole. What I can tell you is that I then drilled in a little bit more deeply, used some of the filtering features in the All Pages report to say, okay, show me just traffic from the HIV info section, which is where we built these new pages. And show me traffic that's only from organic search. And show me traffic only from referral, only from these other sources. And what I can tell you as a result of doing all that research is that this increase in traffic at first was directly from folks who got redirected from the old site to the new site. Great. That's what we expected. So we probably doubled our traffic, maybe a little bit more. What happened after that is that we saw a gradual, steady increase. This huge upward trend is all an increase in organic search traffic. We also do use Google AdWords, and I did set up, as you'll see the second highlighted item, in July, I did change over our AdWords program so that we were targeting those smaller those smaller pages about HIV info. We did restructure those. It barely made a dent. It really did not have much of an impact on this overall trend of traffic. This is almost all organic search results. This is Google favoring our pages more and more, and people finding our pages more and more, which I believe is a direct result of the restructuring of that content. And the restructuring of that content came about because I saw the pattern that existed on the Stop AIDS site that was very different from the pattern that we were seeing on the SFAF.org site. So as you can see, the trend line has continued to go up. I'm ecstatic. We're reaching tens of thousands of people now, where before we were reaching maybe a few thousand a day or a week in this case. And so it's been hugely successful, and a lot more folks are seeing that content now than saw it before. So I'm super happy about it. And I think that it's definitely a testament to the value of the time it took whoever it was 2 years ago to do that initial analytics setup is what allowed me to do this analysis. And the fact that I've set up analytics and kind of kept it going is what's allowed me to kind of be able to highlight this. And it makes for a great story to tell our donors, to tell our management, to say, look, we're reaching people every day, every week, and more and more and more people are getting our educational content, which is huge.
Fantastic. Congratulations, Alex. This is really exciting.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, let me ask, so this would be a great time to ask Alex any questions you have through the chat. Let me just ask one that I had. So back on this other page, so I have total control, so I can show you whatever. But you mentioned that you use the bounce rate as part of the kind of the calculus you use to decide about the bounce rate, and I noticed in one of the columns you had just the comments, this has an absurdly high bounce rate. Can you just talk a little bit about how you use bounce rate? I think bounce rate is one of the things that often confuses everybody, especially in how high typical bounce rates are. Can you just talk a little about how you worked it into the analysis?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I did a couple of years ago that was hugely helpful for my understanding of analytics was I did a course through an organization called Market Motive, I think, with Avinash Kaushik. This dude, he actually is now a Google Analytics evangelist, and he writes a lot about web analytics. He's got, I think, 3 books out at this point, and his blog posts alone are hugely, just densely packed with information. You don't even need to buy the book. Just read his blog posts. You'll learn a ton. The way that he summarizes the concept of a bounce rate is I came, I puked, I left. So an entrance or a landing page is the page that the first page on your site that someone visited. The exit page is the last page that they visited. And as far as Google Analytics knows, it's just using JavaScript in a page, right? So it doesn't necessarily know everything that a person did, but at some point it stops getting page views from a person. And after about 20 minutes of inactivity, it says, okay, well, I guess they left because I haven't seen a request from that person in 20 minutes. I think maybe they've gone to another site. If the person only came to one page on your site, they came in, they saw one page, and then they didn't look at another page on your site, that's considered a bounce. The presumption being that if they came to your site and read something that they found useful, that they would click on something else, that they'd go to at least one other page on the site. And so the bounce is considered kind of a negative. It generally means, like Avinash would say, I came, I puked, I left. They didn't like what they saw. It's possible that they got what they needed and left, but it's less likely. So he sets a rough bar. He says around 80. If you're over 80, you probably want to be looking at what's going on. It's a contextual question because it really depends on what's on the page and could someone just come to this page, digest what they needed, and leave, and is that okay? In most cases, that's probably not true, and so 80% is his bar. And so I kind of took that as a rough guideline, and really it was a little bit looser than that. It's a little bit intuitive as far as like, well, this is a really small page with not much content on it. If you only read this and you were not tempted to click anywhere else, that means you really didn't dig it, because you would have wanted to click on at least one other page if you'd seen something useful here. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, and I just wanted to add that content-heavy sites, like probably all of our sites, Idealware sites, Alex's site, all of our sites, tend to have higher bounce rates than other sites because, as Alex was mentioning, it's a little more sensible that someone might come to a single page on your site, read it, and then leave. But definitely, you should think through what's intuitive and what's not. Like for instance, on our site, we see a huge pattern of logically, you don't want a lot of people bouncing off your menu of articles, or the page which is just trying to get you to where you want to go. If it is a small, short article that answers a question, then possibly someone showed up from a search, got exactly the answer they wanted. They, got the information that they could or could not leave their child home alone after school. Sorry, I love that example. Thanks, Teri. And then left the site. And that might count as a bounce technically, but intuitively it's not a bad thing. So it's kind of, there's some gut instinct there.
And I think a lot of these numbers have to be taken in context, which is one of the reasons why establishing patterns across multiple organizations, I think, can be challenging. There would have to really need to be some parameters around it to say, like, okay, we're comparing these types of sites, specifically types of sites as opposed to types of organizations, because even within that, the structure of your site, the way that your site's organized, has a huge impact on how people engage with it, what your bounce rate would be, how many pages per visit. Like, if you have a site where everything's really, really tiny, then your pages per visit is going to be much higher because you have to click around in order to achieve anything. But that's not necessarily a sign of success. Like, it gets a little squirrely.
Yeah. Yeah, Laura, Norvig, you want to hit 6 to just expand on your comment in the chat, which I think is a really important one?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you'll see that on a lot of more commercial newsy sites or they have slideshows or they have articles where you have to click through about 6 pages to read it. And I guess that would give them better analytics, like is the person going to the second page? But I think they also do it just to get more ad impressions and more, So I don't know that is, that could be something to experiment with, but you don't want to make it harder for the user.
Right, and like in many things,
I think it's definitely
for the measure. Sorry, go ahead, Brian.
I think it's definitely for the ad impressions. I am definitely not a fan of dividing up content onto multiple pages because it does make it more difficult for users. So Cory Doctorow did a very short YouTube video a few years ago. He's one of the bloggers for Boing Boing and also a science fiction writer, talking about best practices for blogging. And I think it applies to statewide websites because it's do whatever makes it easiest for your user. Don't make them click through stuff. Don't make it difficult for them to find things. Make the titles very easy to read, accessible, something that shows up in search engine results. A lot of his suggestions really apply to us. I'll see if I can find a link to that video and put it forward. Very low production quality, but great advice.
Right. Yeah, and I think as Alex was pointing out, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying context matters. Like if you're dealing with like we were dealing with a frequently asked questions kind of scenario, and I think in that scenario, chopping it up makes more sense. But if you have an article where there's you're explaining one concept through an article, then I think chopping it up, again, is creating a barrier for someone. So, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, totally, I agree. Putting yourself kind of in the mentality of the user, that it's potentially annoying to have to scroll through 15 different frequently asked questions to just get the question you want, but it's super annoying to have to hit, next 15 times in order to simply read one concept. Great. Teri also had a comment in the chat about kind of how they're seeing bounce rate on their site. Bounce is apparently a popular topic. You want to just talk a little bit about the article you mentioned in the chat, Teri?
Okay, great. Yeah, bounce rate is tricky for us because, of course, a lot of our content does. The name of the content is a question itself, and the content answers the question, right? So, and you saw that on some of our results. Sort of, what's a disability under the ADA? What's the difference between dismissed and with and without prejudice? Can I leave my children home alone after school? And so we have a tendency to sort of discount the bounce rate on content pages, but as you pointed out, Laura, it's important for you don't want to have a high bounce rate on your home page where there's no real content and it's just navigation, right? Or any page where if you have a drill down menu of some kind, you want to have a low bounce rate on that, on those kinds of pages.
One lesson that I've been trying to apply to our blog context that kind of gets to this issue is what I started to see so much on various news sites, which is the related posts phenomena. So adding a widget that connects to relevant other content can be hugely impactful, and you can actually see a drop in your bounce rate because you're enticing people to say, oh, you're worried about the interpretation of ADA, or you're worried about whether or not you're allowed to leave your child at home. There are definitely related questions there. There are other questions that are going to be top of mind or should be top of mind for someone who's researching that. So either linking in the content, which is one of the things that we did with our FAQ section, creating links in content, or adding a widget that links you over with a nice image for other articles that are pertinent, can decrease your bounce rate. It'll increase the person's engagement with your website, which increases their overall education as well as their affinity with your organization. So it's definitely an opportunity there.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And this is, Amazon has been doing this for years, right? This is the thing where they say, oh, customers who bought this book also bought these other 5 books, or looked at this. So, and there's a reason why they've continued to do it.
Following the lead of the people who have all the money, because they've done a lot of research.
Right.
Absolutely. Let's wind up with one closing question for the panel. Although certainly, if you guys participating out there have questions for the panel, we'll certainly work those in. So I'm wondering if you had suddenly inherited a website that had a bunch of content on it, a bunch of, answers to questions and stuff that you thought was really good, but it had no analytics going on right now. Or let's say that there's, in fact, Google Analytics is installed and there's like a year or 2 years of data, but no one has ever done anything with it. What would be the first things that you would want to start to be able to think about? What would be top of list for you as to things that you definitely needed to get started with? Brian, because I'm picking on people with a new question, I'm going to pick on you first. Brian, what would be on top of mind for you to just, kind of get something underway?
I took over the LSNTAP website after it had been up since 2006, and I did this in 2011. So there's really this history, and I didn't know what was really important to the community. So one of the first things that I did was looked at the Google Analytics and looked at which of our pages were viewed the most. And some of those were really surprising. Some of them were not so much. People clearly liked video content, but in our top 5 hits was also a page on WordPerfect versus Word. I didn't know that WordPerfect was still a piece of software, and I had no idea what I was really getting into with legal services and ingrained technology at times. So it gave me a lot of background over what was important to people, and that talking about legacy systems, alternatives, updating, installing new technology, that type of stuff was very important to the community. So I think looking at that most viewed history will give you a lot of information about your community.
Great. Laura, same question to you. So if you had just suddenly inherited a site, what would be top of your list? Kind of similar stuff, different stuff?
Well, one opportunity, that we lost, this is going to be a little bit of an indirect answer, but I forget when it was, a year or two ago, when we, we lost a lot of the ability to see what keywords were coming from organic search when Google made that change. So I would immediately try to get a Google grant and get AdWords going, because that way you get more information about keywords that people are searching on.
Great. And tell me a little more about kind of what information you get out of the keywords. So what decisions that'll help you make as an organization.
I think you want to compare, are the terms that people are finding your site with the terms that you hope they would be finding your site with. And it depends what industry you're in, because sometimes if you have highly competitive terms, you're not going to be able to drive traffic with those terms. So you want to experiment with more, what they call long tail or niche keywords. But that would be a big red flag to me if I set up AdWords, but then I realized that, the keywords people were using to find me were not the ones that I hoped. Then I might try to skew the content a little, or again, as I said, it's tougher now. We don't have the rich keyword analytics that we used to.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Alex, your thoughts as to what you would want to start doing almost immediately?
Definitely. I've been through this process a number of times, and I've written about it and described it a few different times. There's sort of an initial analytics audit that I generally go through, which is not dissimilar from what I had walked through here, just taking a look to see what data's been collected, what are the popular pages on the site, where are people going, and how are people finding it? Is there a lot of referral traffic? Is it mostly search? To speak to the keywording knowledge gap, the best way to fill that gap is with the webmaster tools. So I'd also want to activate the webmaster tools for Google and for Bing for the website, and that would give me a little bit of insight, not as rich as we used to get, but better than nothing as far as what keywords are driving folks to the site.
Cool. Absolutely. Can you tell us just a little more about the webmaster tools, so what that means for Google and Bing?
So webmaster tools, which you can get to at, I think it's webmaster.google.com probably, and I can't remember the Bing address because they're not as consistent. But if you look for it, if you search for it, you'll find they both offer a system by which you can add a bit of code to your site and then, get a login on Bing or Google and then tell them, okay, this domain is mine, like it's mine, and you know it because I put that little bit of code on my site. Once you do that and then you become authenticated, what it will tell you, amongst other things, is when's the last time you were indexed? So when's the last time the indexer came to your site? How many pages did it find? Did it find errors? All of which will impact your search engine ranking. It will also tell you how many folks were driven to your site by various keywords. And the reason that they kept the data, the reason they kept that data visible in the webmaster tools is because it's all aggregated. It's not tied to specific sessions. So there's no way you could possibly link this to individuals' actions or individual people. It's just aggregate data that says X number of folks were, searched for you using the word ADA, and this is how many of them ended up coming to your site, and this is how you ranked. You were third place, or you average ranked 4.5 out of however many. So it's similar to what we used to be able to see with the keywords on incoming visits, but it's just a little bit abstracted. And it's a really good pairing with the AdWords keyword research tool. There's some overlap between all these tools, and you kind of want to use all three to try to get a good broad picture. But it's a tool that a lot of people haven't thought about, and it's definitely useful.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you so much. All right. And last but not least, I'll put the question to Teri. Teri, what if you were inheriting a whole new website? What would you want to get up and running in short order for you to understand what was going on?
Well, I mean, I think that the story that Alex told and the process that he went through was really good. And so I'm going to say what he said. I do have one thing, one lesson that we learned. Another thing that you can get from Google Analytics is we did usability testing back in 2006 that caused us to re-engineer how the navigation on our websites. And so the websites used to be set up as a drill-down menu by legal problem, essentially. And we usability tested that and found that that was a really bad way to set up navigation on the website because nobody knows how to properly define their legal problem. They don't know that if their car is repossessed, they have a consumer law issue, for example. And so what we did was we also found in usability testing, everybody to get the answer would go to Google, right? And so we created an internal search tool. And that's essentially, if you go to illinoislegalaid.org or ayudalegal.org, the homepage is just a search tool. There's no other navigation. There is a small browse articles link on the bottom that's very discreet. So if you really want to browse, you can do it that way. But one of the things I started looking at in Google Analytics was you can set up a way to see, are people using that internal search and how are they using it? And I found that on our public website for the English, only 10% of our visits are using the internal search. And on the Spanish website, 4%. So what that tells me is going forward, we need to be providing some other navigation tools for people to get around. And we do have the related articles that Alex mentioned. So that is on all of our content, have other content that is related to it. And so that's a way for people to get to other content. But we don't have any overarching navigation or any system for it. And so, we need to look at that and offer that as an option to our users.
That's interesting. Yeah, they say that, so a lot of research has said that some people are very search focused and almost no matter where they go, they will just search no matter what your navigation looks like. And some people tend to be browse focused. No matter how much search you have, they will browse. But over time, the percentage of people who are search focused is rising comparatively with browse focused. So over time, Teri, it might come to you over time that more people will search, but certainly it does.
Well, if we just stay it out long enough.
Exactly. So it was more not really suggesting that as much as just kind of thinking about both sides of that model. That and it tends to be one of the things that more technical people are more likely to be search focused. And so they tend to discard a little bit more the possibilities that people might be browse focused. So, fantastic. All right, thank you so much to our panelists, to Teri, to Laura, to Brian and Alex, all of you provided some really great insights into how this all works in real life. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much, and I will turn it over to Brian to close us out.
Thank you so much for coming out today. We greatly appreciate it. All of our trainings are posted to our YouTube channel. We've also got a link to a survey for giving us feedback that is in the chat. This was part 2 of a 2-part series on web analytics. Part 1 was just posted to YouTube today and is available on our channel. It'll also be posted on the homepage of LSNTAP. Thank you, everybody, for coming out and speaking. Greatly appreciate all the speakers and to Laura for organizing. A great webinar today.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll see you soon.